No, the post office is not dead yet. Maybe soon, but not yet. Um, but, maybe your mail has not gotten there and it's proclaimed dead. Is that what the story is about? Uh, Maybe. We'll see. Let's see what the IMDb plot has to say. An anonymous help note finds its way to a 1980s post office, connecting a dead letter investigator to a kidnapped keyboard technician. Okay, interesting plot there. Didn't know there were dead letter investigators learning something new all the time. I don't know if that still exists. Interesting enough. If not, I'm probably not going to be here much longer. But anyway, yeah, new movie that's coming here. It will be on Shudder. I believe it hit a couple of festivals, if I'm not mistaken. But it's finally going to be released here on Shudder. So it is new, and got an early glimpse at it here. So we'll try to keep this kind of spoiler free. There's probably a little bit twist and turns. There's a little bit of a mystery here. Some craziness going on here. So we'll try to keep that hidden from you guys. Let's see where to start. I'm going to start by saying, I often thrive for finding unique horror that's, new, different, doesn't seem like something I've seen before. I have to say that when this movie ended and so forth, one of my first thoughts was how in the hell did someone figure out this story? I don't know if this is based on a true story or kind of angled at it from a true story, or where they came up with this just weird story with people that you wouldn't think that are really going to do what happens here. It's just a bizarre, not really bizarre story. You can kind of see it, and kind of connect it to maybe some other horror, but just the setting, having a male person, having a keyboard technician, just maybe some of the jobs that they picked out here to kind of help this story kind of go by. It just, something just seemed like, when I finished watching this, it's just like they seriously thought of all this. And we've seen some really weird horror movies, like really way out there, and I would say that this one kind of stays in the base of reality. There's no ghost, there's no mystery this, and there's no supernatural this, whatever. It kind of stays by the bounds of just what a crazy person or two are doing here. But it's just a weird weird circumstance, I guess, overall, and so forth, and I don't know. I just couldn't help myself to be thinking, just like, where did this all come from? And it's not to say whether it's the movie was bad or it's good. I think to kind of before I get into any specifics, it is a bit of a slow burn. You're going to have to kind of go through a journey on this one. It is a little bit suspenseful in finding out what is going to happen. They're not in a hurry to kind of get you anywhere quickly, so you're just going to have to sit by for the ride. With that, does it say how long this was? An hour and 46 minutes. So yeah, it is, it teeters over the hour and a half mark a little bit. The way it goes, you almost thought it was probably closer to 2 hours. But yeah, they're in no hurry to get you there. They're going to go through a lot of, talking and characters and getting introduced to characters and just slowly giving you the pieces of what is happening here. But it really boils down to two main characters here. A keyboard technician and some crazy guy who has an obsession with the keyboards and that kind of thing. There are some other sub characters like in the post office side of it. They play an important role, but at the end of the day, I think it really comes down to that. The basics of the story are that, you have this crazy guy, and I don't even remember exactly what he's doing early on, but he eventually ends up going to kind of this small kind of almost flea market kind of thing, that people are kind of selling their stuff and whatever, and he runs into a guy who's got this keyboard contraption set up there, and they get in this conversation about keyboards and electronics and this and that, and the keyboard guy has this big dreams and whatever, but realizes the limitations of that. He's trying to create a model that will be sent to, I think it's Yamaha or something, so that they could it'd be the big next thing, I guess, in keyboards or whatever. I'm not really familiar with any of that stuff, so I don't know. So the guy pitches him an idea, and kind of says, well, I can kind of help fund you, back you, and help you out. You do the kind of work, and I'll help you out. So they form this kind of relationship. But the crazy guy, he wants everything done quicker, faster, and they have disagreements on where they're going eventually. They kind of hit a roadblock in their thoughts. One wants to do one thing, one wants to do the other. So as opposed to just kind of splitting up and calling it a day or whatever that, no, the crazy guy decides he's going to entrap the keyboard guy, and keep him in the basement and kind of force him to finish working on this prototype, or this whatever it is he's working on, and do it the way that he wants to. And he's just going to keep him there, and that's it. It's the end of the day. And what we see the movie open is we see, before we know who these characters are, we see a chained up guy come out of the house and struggle to get to this post office post office box that's outside of the house, and he happens to slip a letter into it prior to the crazy guy coming, pulling him back inside and throwing him back in the dungeon, to say. And from there, then again, we learn what I just said about their relationship and how that comes to be. So then you see why he wrote this letter and tried to send it off. The other portion of the film, then we see in the post office, we get introduced to a couple of characters there, and one who's pretty good at what he does, and I guess he's the investigator, and he's the one who ultimately ends up with the bloodied letter that the keyboard guy had sent. And it's an incomplete letter. It doesn't really have a return address and so forth on it. So he's trying to figure out where it comes from, and if this person really needed help and whatever. So he goes through his investigative things. He makes a phone call or two, and then there's a couple other people in the office who know kind of what he does and what he's up to, and that he's very good at his job. So while, as opposed to the crazy guy just saying, oh, well, the guy sent the letter, but hopefully it didn't go anywhere or whatever. No, he goes on an extensive search to find out where this letter went and anybody who might have seen the letter, and basically try to eliminate them until he can kind of track down where this letter ended up and maybe hide it. So, when I told you that it's kind of a wild, crazy story, like, that's just the kind of wildness it is. Again, it's not because we're going on a wild story because we're going on some crazy adventure and going through forest and woods and mystery lands and so forth. But it's just to think that this guy mailed the letter and that this other guy is going to go through great lengths to find out what post offices went to, who might have seen it in this post office, who that person might have talked to, and just, basically try to eliminate all those people. It is just a little bit crazy. And, I don't know, but, that's kind of what goes on here. And, I don't want to go too much further into where it eventually goes. Let you guys kind of see that for itself. But, it just had me shaking my head that this guy, like, seriously, like, either move or hope the letter, never reached, or I don't know what to tell you, it looked like, it almost looked like he was going to try to destroy the post office box before the mail guy even picked up the mail. Maybe he should have, I guess it would have been a federal offense, but he should have, run it over with his car or burned it or whatever. I don't know. Before it even got that far. But to think that, and then that he should have, to do this all over a keyboard, that they're creating or whatever is just bizarre in itself. I couldn't even imagine you even thinking about going to prison because you've basically kidnapped a guy who's making a keyboard for you. I guess, they're expecting maybe millions of dollars at the end, to get some big contract. So I guess I can kind of see that, but still, I mean, you've kidnapped a guy over a keyboard. He sends out a letter. Now you're going to go and kill, all these other people just to kind of keep all this a secret. Just weird. So again, it is going to slowly get you there, slowly move you into a direction. You'll eventually see, the outcome of the characters here, and what happened to this letter and who saw it and so forth. And, it's not, huge on the blood and guts and that kind of thing, not huge on that. It is just really watching a bizarre circumstance kind of play out. And, you'll see a little bit of the workings of them trying to figure out where this letter went and so forth. And then this guy kind of, in his own weird way, kind of hunting down and finding, where this letter went and eliminating people along the way and trying to stay hidden in the way. He's definitely weird and awkward in himself, obviously, as he should be. And you'll really eventually feel sorry for this keyboard guy who just wanted his dream to play out and instead ends up locked up in his basement at the mercy of a crazy person. I'm not going to say, it's maybe the most exciting, most thrilling thing or whatever. But if you're just kind of in the mood for, I'm not even, it's not really true crime or whatever. It's kind of, maybe just a little bit of mystery and just a bizarre circumstance kind of thing play out. And again, maybe something, that's different. Like I said, just the who these people are and the circumstance here is just weird. I mean, I would never have thought a horror movie, after, built so much on basically because a letter was sent. It does list here crime, drama, horror, thriller, and that seems, fairly the way it is. It probably is a little bit more of a drama before it is horror, even though there will be people that die. But yeah, it is just a weird thing overall. So, I will be interested to see once everybody gets to kind of see this, the reaction to it. Are you going to be able to sit still through it? Are you going to be able to watch everything play out? Or is it just going to be something you look at and you're kind of like, what am I watching? Do I really want to sit through this? I don't know. So with that, I think at the end of the day, I'm going to give it 2 pools of blood. Maybe not my thing. Again, not a bad movie, just, a little bit slow burn. I'm not all for slow burns, but it is a little bit slow burnish. You are going to have to wait for things to kind of unfold. Again, I do like true crime. I don't know that you're really along for a huge mystery here. You're more watching it than kind of being involved in it. At least that's how I took it. But, even though I give it 2 pools of blood, I still credit them for, putting together just a unexpected story and an unexpected person going through, great lengths for, really unnecessary reasons over an unnecessary thing. So, at least in my mind, again, the whole keyboard thing was important to them and just seems wild to me. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. So with that, again, 2 pools of blood, that is out of 5 for this one. So with that, make sure that when you mail something, or if you are holding someone hostage and they mail something, you just find a different way to go about it. You don't go and killing all the mail people that there is. if there's still a post office by then. But anyway, horrorsquarereviews.blogspot.com is where you can find all of my reviews, written and video. Certainly mostly video reviews for a while now, so you can like, subscribe, and do everything else that everybody wants you to do. If not, no worries, it is okay. Thank you for your time regardless. Twitter, Facebook information down below. Feel free to join me there. Your thoughts, definitely going to be interested in people's thoughts on this one. And definitely in the comment section, once you guys kind of see this, like it, didn't like it, what's happening there, please let me know. I'm definitely going to be interested in seeing, the reaction to this. So with that, I'll catch you on the next review, horror fans.